Okie dokie artichoke. Hello, welcome to our I believe this is the sixth episode of Kids Corner. These are book talks for kids. We're going to be talking about 5 of the new books here in the children's room this May. So the first one we're going to talk about is a nonfiction picture book called You Are Stardust. Here we go. This is written by Elin, Kelsey, and illustrated by Soyeon Kim. So we will talk about that one first. Second, I will introduce you to Jack Goes West, which is a Jack book written by Barnett and Greg Pizzoli. These are easy readers. I'll get into that in a minute. Third, we're going to talk about, deep breath for me, The Breathing Book. This is another nonfiction picture book. This one is written by Christopher Willard and Olivia Weisser, and the art is by Alison. I cannot wait to tell you about this one. I've got some really good fun stuff to talk about. Fourth, this is my favorite out of the bunch. Today we're going to be talking about Stella's stellar hair. The artwork in this book is so beautiful. I cannot wait to show you. So this is written and illustrated by Yesenia Moises, and it is a picture book. And then finally, we're going to end off this episode with Finish the Fight: The Brave and Revolutionary Women Who Fought for the Right to Vote. And this is a nonfiction chapter book that was written by Veronica and the staff of the New York Times. So let's go ahead and start with the first one I mentioned, You Are Stardust by Elin, Kelsey, and illustrated by Soyeon Kim. So, are you in awe of the world around you? Or have you ever looked at the plants and the animals and the other people on this planet and all of the microorganisms here on Earth and felt so good knowing that we are all connected somehow? We're all made of the same stuff, right? Or maybe you haven't ever noticed all of those similarities, and sometimes you feel kind of alone and you need some help recognizing that we are never ever alone on this planet. So if any of those things ring true with you, this is the nonfiction picture book for you to read today. So this is an excellent reminder in picture book form that we are all connected. We are never really alone, and that it is absolutely beautiful and we are all part of nature. So this is a very, very sparse picture book. It has very little text. You'll see on this spread right here, there's literally one sentence, and it is You Are Stardust right here in the middle. There's not a whole lot of writing. This one's got one sentence that's a little bit longer. This one's got 2 sentences that are both very short, so very age appropriate for the younger kids. And the art is a really, really gorgeous mix of 3-dimensional materials. So we have here embroidery, and we've got here some kind of paper sculpted hexagon that's got little cutouts, and you can see string wrapped around inside the center. So really, really good mix of 3D material, sketches, and paintings that really fits the kind of ethereal, delicate atmosphere of this book. So it is full of fun, curious little factoids about the various ways that we human beings form relationships with all of the different materials and other organisms here on Earth. For example, I don't know if you knew this, but this book will tell you that every person on Earth breathes in, inhales upwards of 1 million grains of pollen every single day. Every single day. And most of them get stuck in our nose hairs or in the mucus in our nose, and they trigger a sneeze, and we go, achoo! Hopefully into the crook of our elbow, like we talked about in the last book. And then some of them go through our digestive system and we poo them out. Ew, gross! But some of them gently float back out as we breathe and talk, and they can go on to pollinate other plants and grow flowers and trees and fruits and seeds and stuff like that, which is super cool. Or maybe you will be interested in the fact, which you learn in this book, that just like snakes shed skin and some trees shed bark, humans shed cells in our stomachs, from our skin, in the form of shedding hair from our heads, constantly. We really are no different from any of the other organisms here on Earth. So I recommend this book, You Are Stardust, for story times for all ages, though some of the words and concepts may need to be fleshed out a little bit with an adult. For example, words like atoms and microorganisms and cells, they might be kind of confusing for the youngest readers. And like the concept which they go into in this book, that all of the water that exists on this planet has always existed on this planet. The water that we drink is the same water that dinosaurs walked through in swamps millions and millions of years ago. So things like that might be kind of hard for them to grasp, even for some adults, for some of us to grasp. You know, it's hard to picture in your head that something that you see right now was also here at the very beginning of the planet. So those might be kind of difficult, but it is still a nice, easy nonfiction picture book for an all ages story time. So this is You Are Stardust. Again, that's by Elin, Kelsey, and the artwork is by Soyeon Kim, and this is available to be checked out now. All right, so the second book we're going to talk about is an easy reader called Jack Goes West. And again, this is written by Barnett and Greg Pizzoli. So if you love the Wild Wild West, or things like ranching and lassos and cacti and bandits and bank robberies, then Jack Goes West is the first chapter book for you. This is a really fun, easy reader, which is essentially a book that I recommend when you're making the jump between easy picture books and chapter books that have more chapters, longer chapters, more words per page, that are a higher reading level, etc., etc., etc. So usually I would either recommend, or both, I would recommend an easy reader and or a graphic novel to make that jump between chapter books and picture books. So this is one of those easy readers that I recommend for those of you who really enjoy the Wild Wild West and all things like that. This book is going to introduce you to the wacky, wacky adventures of Jack right here, and then a couple other people. There's the lady, and a man called Slim, and the law lady. I really love that they have a law lady instead of a law man in this Wild Wild West, as well as the bank man. And as you may have guessed, these 5 characters are hanging out with the cacti, and the cows, and the lassos in the Wild Wild West, and you will have to read the book to find out what kind of shenanigans they get into. So, you will see this book starts out, it only has 6 chapters, and it starts out with each chapter having only a sentence or 2 that has very few words of very few syllables. So this first chapter has very little writing and is only 2 pages long. And then the next chapter has a tiny bit more writing, just a tiny bit more, maybe 3 or 4 sentences per page, and is 3 pages long, and so on and so forth. So each chapter gets progressively just a little bit more difficult in terms of the number of syllables per word, the number of words per page, and the number of sentences per page, and the number of pages per chapter. So I highly, highly recommend this if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge after reading really easy picture books without diving straight into chapter books that have 14 chapters and 5-syllable words per page. So I would say if you feel comfortable at a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level, this should be a really good introductory fit for you. Like I said, there are 6 nice short chapters, and they gradually increase in length and the number of words, and every single page has a really bright, colorful illustration to keep new readers interested. So again, highly recommended if you're jumping from picture books into something a little bit more difficult and you're just getting started and you still want lots of bright, vivid, bold pictures to keep you entertained. So that is Jack Goes West by Barnett and Greg Pizzoli. Second, or third actually, I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to take a deep breath. Third, we're going to talk about The Breathing Book, which is written by Christopher Willard and Olivia Weisser and illustrated by Alison Oliver. So, okay, how to put this? Life can be very, very overwhelming sometimes for those of us of all ages, can't it? Maybe you have got lots and lots and lots of energy, and sometimes it's hard to just sit still and recognize the things that you're feeling, and they get kind of scary and overwhelming, right? Or maybe like me, you feel so many things at the same time sometimes that it gets kind of scary, like when you're mad and scared and sad and hurt all at the same time, like after you fell down when you were running and skinned your knee, right? That's very overwhelming. The Breathing Book, this book right here, is here to help us of all ages and all experience with meditation. It's here to help us learn how to focus on our breathing when life just becomes a little too much to handle, because your breath is always there. It's something you can always focus on when you're feeling overwhelmed. So this book helps you practice techniques. I love this book so much. Helps you practice techniques like square breathing, where you breathe in while you move your finger in this direction, and then you hold it while you move your finger down, and then you exhale while you move your finger here, and then you hold it while you move your finger up. So it teaches you practices like square breathing, breathing waves while you practice breathing out, exhaling while your finger's moving down, and inhaling while your finger's moving up. And you can try it with the bigger waves, and maybe you can try breathing faster or slower with the different shapes of the squiggly lines. We will also practice using things like, where is the page? Like finger labyrinths on this page, where you start here and you exhale while you go over here, and then you inhale while you go back the other way, and then you exhale while you go back the other way. And you can practice using these as breathing techniques. Fun fact, I actually have a finger labyrinth tattooed on my arm for just that reason. It was the very first tattoo I ever got when I was 18. So I really, really love this book because it is an actionable picture book. So each spread includes at least one actionable breathing activity, as in something that you can do while you read the book, and it will give you cues and clues and insight into how you can make it work for you if the actual practice that's listed out or drawn out on the page isn't quite working. So I would say that this is really, really good to help people of any age get into the swing of very basic meditation, and seeing how different methods of balancing this book, for example, on your hand or on your head or on your belly while you're laying flat on the ground, those are all things that you do while you read this book, can either help or hinder your ability to be mindful, which is just really exciting to me. So like I said, I recommend the breathing book, there we go, for any person of any age who is interested in or could benefit from an introduction to mindfulness. So basically all of us. So basically every human being on the planet. While the very, very young aren't likely to really be able to sit still long enough to get through all of the activities listed in this book in one sitting, I do think that it's a really, really good way to introduce them to just one of the activities. Maybe practice one activity for 5 minutes a day for a week before switching to the next activity listed in the book. So aside from that, I really cannot recommend this book enough. Whether you're experienced with meditation and mindfulness or you're an absolute beginner, the actionable practices laid out in this book make for a really excellent back to basics approach to mindfulness that is appropriate for all ages. So that is the breathing book, and this is also available for checkout if you are interested. Okay, so the next new book for May, we're almost done, fellas, ladies and fellas, and all friends, is Stella's Stellar Hair. The illustrations in this book are so beautiful. So this is written and illustrated by Yesenia Moises. Here is the front. And if you like learning about fun hairstyles, or maybe looking up cool hair tutorials on YouTube and practicing them in the mirror for hours and hours like I used to do, or maybe you like learning about our solar system and where each planet fits in relation to Earth and what some of the characteristics of those planets are, or maybe you just sometimes don't like something about yourself, like your eyes or your nose or your hair or all of the freckles you have everywhere all over your body like me. And you know, there's just something that you don't really like about yourself and you need help figuring out how to learn to appreciate it and love it for what it is. So if any one of those things that I talked about just before this, if any one of those things struck a chord with you, then you will probably really, really enjoy Stella's Stellar Hair. This book follows Stella right here and her beautiful, big, glorious hair, who is a cool intergalactic girl who is trying to pick the right hairstyle for the, let's see if I can remember what it's called, the Big Star Little Gala, which is going to happen later the night of the book. But oh no! Stella's hair just isn't behaving the way she wants it to. And none of the hairstyles that she learns from her awesome aunts, each of whom is from a different planet. So here she is, hopping on her hoverboard with her nice little head covering to protect her from the vacuum of space. And she's going to go visit her first aunt on Mercury and see, Aunt Ophelia, what kind of hairstyle would you give me today? But that one doesn't fit. So next she's going to go visit her aunt on Venus, but that hairstyle's not going to fit. And so on and so forth until she gets to the very last auntie who lives in the sun and who helps her recognize that her hair is beautiful and she needs to just love it the way it is. So, just like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Stella needs to find the hairstyle that fits her just right. And will she figure it out in time for the gala? I don't know. You're going to have to read the book to find out. So, this is the perfect picture book for an all ages story time. There isn't too much text. I'll just flip to a random page and you'll see. So here is a nice average representation of the amount of text per page. Just a little chunk here in the middle with 1, 2, 3 sentences. None of the words are too big. They don't have too many syllables. And there are lots and lots and lots, oodles of opportunity for audience participation. So we can talk about how cool Stella's hoverboard is, because that is very cool. We can talk about how important it is to find a style, be it a hairstyle or clothes, that fits your own form of self-expression, or how each auntie's own hairstyle. So for example, here's the auntie who lives on Mars with her short, elegant hair, or here's the auntie who lives on Neptune with her very, very sleek, wavy, long, beautiful hair. We can talk about how each of the aunties on their own planet has their own hairstyle and how that hairstyle might reflect the atmosphere of that planet. So lots and lots of room for participation. I particularly love this little 2-page spread at the end here that gives a little bit more information about why each auntie has the clothing and hairstyle that they do based on what the planet that they live on is like. So it's just a little bit more info about planets and what each of the planets in our solar system has for an atmosphere for the young kids who are just starting to get into space. I think that's really cool. So if you read this book on your own, I do think maybe 7 or 8 years old and up should be great. Like I said, there aren't a whole lot of words per page, but any younger than that, and you might want a friend or a family member to help you sound out some of the more difficult words with more syllables. So that is Stella's Stellar Hair, written and illustrated by Yesenia Moises, and that is available for checkout. And our last one, so close, is Finish the Fight, the brave and revolutionary women who fought for the right to vote. Right there. All right. And this is written by Veronica Chambers and the staff of the New York Times. So this book is packed full of little known aspects of the history of the women's suffrage movement in the United States that most of us don't ever learn about. I, for example, took a lot of women's history classes in college before I decided to become a librarian and switched over to library science for grad school. So I never learned about most of the stuff in here, even though I was taking college-level women's history classes. So there's a lot of stuff in here that they don't ever tell you in school, and I think that that's fantastic. So what we learn about the women's suffrage movement, which coincidentally was one of the longest social reform movements in the United States, which you will learn when you read this book, is that while most of us learn about the white suffragists, like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Alice Paul, and maybe even Ida B. Wells, who was one of the most recognizable black suffragists of the time, there are hundreds or even thousands of women who came from various racial and ethnic backgrounds that we should know and celebrate. And they are going to be described in this book. From women like Carolyn Parker Mount Pleasant. Let's find her. I believe she's on page 10. Here she is. So from Caroline Parker Mount Pleasant, who was the daughter of a chief and clan mother of the Seneca Wolf clan on the Tonawanda Reservation, so in New York, to Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, right here, who I never heard of. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who led the American Association of Educators of Colored Youth and helped found the National Association of Colored Women, both in the late 19th century. So, people I never heard about, too. Where are you? I'm going to flip until I find her, because I got to tell you, Mabel Pinghua Lee. I never, ever, ever learned about Chinese American or Chinese immigrant women in the suffragist movement in the United States when I was in college. So we're going to learn about her as well, which is very exciting to me. So from all three of those ladies to, well, not hundreds more because the book's only so long, but to dozens more, you're going to learn about some of the women who led one of the largest and longest lasting social reform movements in the United States. And I think that's so exciting. By the way, Mabel Pinghua Lee, who is a Chinese immigrant at just 16 years old, led her Chinese and Chinese American community in New York into the 1912 suffrage march in New York City, which was one of the largest suffrage events in U.S. history as well. So you're going to learn all sorts of fun stuff about a lot of people that you may not have learned about in school, even if you did take college level classes, like me, in women's suffrage. So this is definitely a book for the older crowd. I would recommend at least a minimum of a 5th or 6th grade reading level in order to get through the dense text. So let me pull up a page that isn't one of the pictures. So yeah. There's very dense text, and there are lots of words of 5 or more syllables. So I would recommend that you have at least a 5th or 6th grade reading level in order to get through this book, but I cannot recommend it enough. I was just fascinated. For example, we do learn about the Grimke sisters, but we learn about some stuff about them that I never heard even in graduate level women's history courses. So, very exciting stuff. There are also about 20 pages of additional information at the back. Let me go ahead and pull that up. We have an author's note. We have a timeline of events from 1807 all the way to 1972. We've got nice short blurbs about all of the women mentioned in this book if you're just looking for a quick fix of information. So there's like 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages of that. Then we have 1920 versus 2020 by the numbers, which shows how life in politics and in the United States has changed for women, statistically speaking, from 1920 to 2020. So, for example, the number of doctors in the United States who were women in 1920 was just 5%, and in 2020 that had gone up to 36%. So, cool info like that. And then we've got a nice little suffrage forest right here. More information about some of the women who weren't mentioned in this book. Acknowledgements. This part is really cool for me. This is an illustrator's note right here, which is the illustrator explaining why she made the artistic decisions that she did for the illustrations for each chapter. There's a lot of very meaningful information on this page that I think is worth reading. And then my favorite part as a librarian, next up we have future reading, a long list of related books and articles that you can read if you're interested in learning more about this subject. I highly recommend you do. And a bibliography where they cite their sources. Yay! All right, so that is Finish the Fight, The Brave and Revolutionary Women Who Fought for the Right to Vote by Veronica Chambers and the staff of the New York Times. Cannot recommend this enough, and it is available to check out here at the library. So those were 5 new books here in the children's room this May, and I will see you again for our next Kids Corner Book Talks for Kids episode on the last Friday of June, where we will talk about 5 or more of the new books in the children's library for that month. Just a heads up, we are about to start our summer reading program. That starts on June 11th. You can pre-register right now online at mendolibrary.beanstack.org, or you can download the Beanstack app on your phone, either with iOS or Android. The first 150 people who sign up will receive a $5 gift card to one of our local businesses. We have gift cards to the Nook Artisan Gelato. We have gift cards to Sword and Board if you like gaming. We have gift cards to the Mendocino Book Company, and we have some gift cards for Shots Bakery and Cafe. So, the first 150 people to register of all ages will receive one of those gift cards. We will notify you if you are one of those 150 on or after June 11th, the day that we're going to open up for open registration and people can sign up in person here in the library. So if you don't get notified until June 11th, please don't panic. We are keeping track of who signs up online and we are making note of it, and we will let you know on or after June 11th that you can come pick up your gift card, okay? Other than that, I will be doing story time next Friday, every Friday at 10:30 a.m. It's a virtual toddler story time. Or I will see you for the next episode of Kids Corner on the last Friday of June at 4 p.m. Have a beautiful weekend, guys. Bye.